New Aphotic Realm announcement. Submission windows for upcoming issues. Issue 10, the theme is justice. That's hard-boiled fiction with a supernatural twist. The deadline for that will be April 1st, 2020. Issue 11, the theme is kaiju, giant monsters terrorizing civilization. Deadline will be October 1st, 2020 for those stories. Issue 12, the theme is lycanthropy, which is, of course, self-explanatory. It can be any type of animorph with a bloody twist. So I guess that's werewolves and Jesus, giant, I don't know. What do people turn into? Seals? I've just got a little seal on my desk, so I thought of that. I don't know. You'll have to be more imaginative than I just was. But the deadline for lycanthropy, January 1st, 2021. Good luck to everyone submitting.
This thing, I hope you like it. Let's talk about it, yeah. Let's lose track. Losing the plot podcast. Losing the plot podcast. Losing the plot podcast. Talking to Leo X.
So my guest this episode is Sebastian Muravchik. He was the lead singer in a band called Heartbreak, still is. I saw them back in like 2009, I thought they were brilliant. Saw them a few times, met him, got photos with him. Then just recently he added me on Facebook, I guess because I was a fan of Heartbreak on the Facebook page, and I thought, hey, I know exactly who that is. I wonder what he's up to. And I thought, I know how I can find out. I'll ask him to be on Losing the Plot, so that's exactly what I did, and he was kind enough to agree. So it's very cool. Got to learn about his latest musical project, SNS Sensation, and what keeps him going creatively. I hope you enjoyed the chat. I was so glad to get to talk to him, having known about it for such a long time. If you would like to be on the show, or if you want to tell me something about it, you can always do so using losingtheplotpodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. But that's on my intro chat, so here is my conversation with Sebastian Muravchik. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Yeah, good. I was out filming today. We're making another feature film with my friends.
Wow. What genre?
It's a horror film, yeah. So
Brilliant.
there's lots of fake blood and heavy dialogue. Awesome. We tried to do a scene that's like half uninterrupted, half an hour, but none of us could get our lines right, unfortunately. So I just had to.
That's extremely difficult to do. Yeah, that's
it was pretty ambitious.
Harder than theatre. Yeah.
Yeah. You yourself are like qualified in filmmaking as well, right?
Yes, I have a background in film. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm a big film buff from many years ago, and that's carried on. I mean, yeah, I'd say it's as much of a passion as music is. Really, it's that kind of level of commitment to it.
Mm-hmm.
Film, and nowadays, what you would call TV or shows like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I studied film for a while. I worked with film crews for a while, and then the main thing that I kind of studied was film. So the TV thing, I look at it with a film sort of eye, a cinematographic eye, if you want to call it that. Yeah.
This is
how cool. You've got a full feature done, a horror feature done.
Almost done, yeah. We've got two more things to do on, I think, Tuesday. The film's called Burnt Portraits, so tomorrow I'm taking a bunch of canvases, I'm going to write our names on them and then set fire to them, and that's the opening credits.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Nice,
it's
yeah.
fun. Yeah.
No more. I mean, the more you can avoid the post production effect,
Mhm.
the organic. It's nice.
That's a good point. Yeah, exactly. And I think I've got to get some sound effects and things like that. You've been making your own music videos.
Yes, and I'm getting better at it with each one as it goes, because it's obviously done with this always within this lockdown kind of situation, and I've got very little time to do them, and so it's all a bit rushed, improvised, and a lot of the time it's just me and the camera and a tripod. So a lot of limitations, but that's it gives it something though. It's there's something nice about it. So the truth is though that it's now with the last video. Have you been able to see the video, the last one? That's really moving in a new direction, which is less. Because I'm a very big fan of traditional kind of storytelling, but I'm moving away from it in the music video side of things, because I'm beginning to realize that music videos are a complete different beast from a feature film or even a short film. So you kind of working out what works best for that particular format. And music videos, I mean, I've also actually had conversations with many people, music journalists, and just even SNS Sensation kind of fans or friends, and because you can do like on Instagram you have this you can ask a question and polls, it's so good, every now and again when you do have a question you can ask and you just get an answer. You can do that on Facebook as well as a regular post.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice. You get a good sense of it. Just it changes the way you think about things, because with my kind of film kind of background, I thought the best kind of music video is going to be the storytelling type, so you structure a story. And the music video I did, the one I did before Mirror Radio is called Your Door, is like the totally classic, well, not totally, but very much classic, very inspired by like the new wave Truffaut and that kind of storytelling that was drawing a lot from traditional, but doing a few things differently, isn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm moving away from that. I'm going into music videos really are not about stories. I think you can do one and it will work, but it's different. What they're working for the music. It's a way of expanding on what the music is. Mm-hmm. Story can expand on it, but the problem I think with the story is that it takes over. When there's a story, it takes over and it turns into this film with your music on it, mm-hmm. whereas it should be a film for the music. So and It seems like a subtle difference, but it's actually massive. It changes completely the nature of that format.
Mm-hmm. I think that's how directors like Michel Gondry tricked me into listening to Bjork's music. It's because their stories were so compelling.
Funny you say that, because you were just talking about burning the credits.
Yeah.
I think one of the brilliant things about him is how he does all the tricks on camera. It has a completely different quality to them.
Yeah.
Different effect. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that. I think that I'm super inspired by. By the way, I didn't mention, but this is the podcast. It's just like a rambling chat, and then I edit it later. It's called Losing the Plot because we can talk about whatever the hell we feel like. So.
I couldn't explain to you how much up my street that is. That pretty much sums up my life and my mind.
Great, this is working for you. But Be Kind Rewind, you know that one? The Michel Gondry film.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, that's with Gabriel Garcia Bernal, isn't
it? The Science of Sleep. That one is, but it's the same. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've seen that one. I saw the The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I used to.
Yeah.
That film is very powerful. I thought I really liked that film.
Mm-hmm. There's a bit of that in Your Door.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I more and more people have been saying, a few people here and there have been talking about the French aspect of what I do, which I haven't got any kind of French background to me, but I'm from Buenos Aires, and it's very, very, it's a culture that's quite influenced by Paris in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I never made that kind of connection myself, so
Mm-hmm.
I have no kind of lineage or background. I don't speak very much French or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I've watched a lot of the new wave films, obviously, as you do when you're a film student, and after that too. They've done a lot of great work. But yeah, that's one of the fascinating things about making creative work to me. This has always been like that. You produce a piece, you put a lot in it, and your thinking process was there was a certain way that you got there. But then when you start hearing what other people have to say about it, it's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very different. There's a different take on it. And to me, that's the most fascinating thing, how the thing takes a life of its own and you discover things about the thing that you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so rewarding. It doesn't get old, that kind of thing. Do you get that with your films?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I like, is that people tend to say that my work is funnier than I think it is.
Amazing. Yeah,
because I think I put a lot of it being horror. This one that we made, the last one was sci-fi, but I put a lot of very dark ideas into what I make. So I feel like I'm slipping very dark messages into something that is funny and conventionally structured. I really love conventional structure. I think especially if you're making like an indie film or then you want to show that you know what you're doing story-wise. So go, okay, we didn't spend any money on this, but I know how to structure a story. I think I'm really maybe like you as well. I feel like, well, of course, I mean, the art is the way that you express yourself, right? And so it's you're really communicating long form what's going on in your head in a way that you perhaps can't even do in a conversation, right? Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful that people get to see that and what they make of it. It seems to you that the interaction with the audience is super important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Potential. I mean, it's live as well is it's extremely important that you get. I mean, what's happening? The audience makes the gig. You've got your thing going, and you are really taking cues from the people
mm-hmm.
Out, in the audience, and they can be very positive and occasionally not that inspiring. But we I don't know with there's another band. I mean, Heartbreak, which we have a record out from a while ago, and live. I guess after a while, people got to know what it is that we do live. Although they know that there's a considerable degree of a higher degree of improvisation than you find in most bands, which have the whole set sort of rehearsed.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the thing that we do. So you start to get a lot more positive responses in the gigs than we did at the beginning, where we had some gigs that were amazing and some gigs where people were rather running away from us rather than coming towards us.
Yeah.
Gigs where the audience there was an empty floor and full at the bottom of the venue, full of people, but nobody wanted to get any closer to us.
Yeah.
I took that as a compliment of sorts. They were watching, they were listening, they just didn't want to come near.
I saw Heartbreak 3 times, I think in 2009. Wow. First time you were supporting the presets. That's how I learned about you. And you were better than the presets that night, so we were like, all right, that's cool. Then I went to go see you in Edinburgh, a place called Cabaret Voltaire. And then you were, I think it's a place called Stereo in Glasgow. Do you remember?
Yes.
It was a huge audience that time. Yeah.
Yes, Glasgow. Yeah, Glasgow was we had some lovely gigs in Glasgow. I think that is I think that's underground somewhere. You gotta go. You go, and it's a massive venue, but it's kind of hidden.
It's just like a tiny little cafe upstairs or something. Yeah.
Glasgow is amazing for music. I was at the time I thought, wow. I mean, you come to Glasgow and you hear DJs are playing something different and basically better. There's great music taste in Glasgow. I find very. I thought there was a difference between Glasgow and most other places, which was quite. I wasn't expecting that. I think why would that happen? We're still going and playing gigs in front of people, but the DJs were particularly, it's a DJ culture there, I think.
Yes, for sure. Because we had Optimal. Don't know if you know that. I mean, they were huge. They were very like musically aware people. I think, like you said, the DJ scene and so on. They really knew their stuff. Like they understood what was great new music now, and it's just like a cool like. It's even cooler now, I think, Glasgow. It keeps getting better. I really like it. I'm from Glasgow, but I now live in Norway. But yeah,
you're in Norway right now, are you? Oh yes.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Norway? It's at.
It's Stavanger. It's in the south. Nobody's heard
we
of
had
it.
a gig in Norway. I can't remember. I can't remember what city it was. Bergen.
Bergen's pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we played. I think. Anyway, my memory is kind of sleeping away. It just doesn't want. It doesn't. It's become really selective. It doesn't want to know anymore. I mean, it doesn't want to. I don't know what's going on, but it just feels like it's kind of screwing things up on purpose. I think it's the kind of my predisposition to I was one of the plays that has had. I mean, I'm a big Samuel Beckett fan, and the play Crab's Last Tape, and many other, the novels as well. Malone Dies and so on. There's always the sense that someone is trying to put the pieces back together, the life, the memories, and it doesn't really fit together. And I quite like that situation. I find that quite instinctually kind of attractive, because it frees you up from history. And freedom is kind of the number one value for me in music. And what music can do is liberate people. Mostly it doesn't, but it's got the power to do it. And I'm seeking to open portals of freedoms with the music and the images that go with it.
And yet, I think that your music is very concerned with the history of the genres that it takes from.
Yes. It's a 100% contradiction there. Yes, I mean, it's always escaping. You're always running away from wherever you are, I think. And I think that's it's generally a good, it works for me. I think it works as a creative sort of impulse. And you always want to do more because you're always running away. There's always, if you're running away from somewhere, or you're running away from something, there's a compulsion to do whatever it is that you're doing next. Whereas if you're just interested because you are, clever or intelligent, there isn't the need to produce. And I think the work that you want to be trying to produce has to be necessary. It has to be, and you have to need to make it, not just want to make it. Ideally, you're looking for that moment where you strike a musical situation, that sound, that music, basically, that becomes necessary to you in your runaway sort of. So yes, I'm drawing from a lot of styles, but when I try to figure out what it is that I do, and I use the word synth pop and things like that, but it really doesn't. I don't really think it applies, although it fits within that definition. It's pop songs with synthesizers, so yeah. But when you try to find that within a certain scene, you struggle. And I have been asking people about this. What I get usually is like, no, it's just kind of your approach to it. And I think what it has to do is that what was happening is that you're drawing from all this music history, as you say, but a lot of that history is dance oriented and instrumental. Most of the music that inspires me is instrumental, but I write songs with vocals on them, and the vocal is central to the song. So I've been trying to figure it out, work it out, half not wanting to actually achieve that, but partly I think, that there's a background of the certain influence of the singer from the kind of singer-songwriter tradition, which you would never relate to what I do, but it actually is very much there for me, and it's extremely important. I think it brings a lot of complexity to what I do and depth, even though you could never trace it back to any of that folk kind of sound in any way, but it's there to me. But it's the musical background of it is that dance, if you want to call it that, instrumental sort of music, techno, of course, disco, which had the vocals in them, but it was really meant for the dance floor, whether it was American disco or Italo or European disco. It's all an influence, but I'm a songwriter. That's how I see myself.
I don't know. I think it's because I'm always interested in whether or not people consider what they do a calling. And of course, you're interested in all different types of art. And I think also what you're alluding to is what we all feel, which is that on one hand, you're influenced by all this great stuff that you never seem to replicate, because whatever you do is your own thing.
Yes.
But I was wondering I don't know whether you thought you were always going to be a songwriter rather than making films, even though you love films, or being a writer, even though you love Beckett plays. What drove you to make music specifically?
It's a funny thing, because I couldn't possibly define myself that way, but I think I think it's the first time in my whole life that I've said to anyone I'm a songwriter. Just now, because it feels like I'm not this or that, but I really am not. But I'd say the closest would be a songwriter, but it's not like I was going to be that, or I'm naturally this or that. I'm just kind of drifting and running away from things, running away from my home country, for example, which you might understand as well, and running away from wherever I am. And songs are just a conduit for that, and thinking is a conduit for that, and philosophy can have an impact on that, but I would never consider myself a person of philosophy, even though I read philosophy and I think a lot, and I write. In my writing, which is instinctual, there's an element of the philosophical, and there's an influence of that French philosophy from the 60s and the 70s, the post-structuralist stuff / postmodernist kind of thinking. But really, that's what I'm working out at the minute, is that it is about freedom, in the end. All of those things are conduits for freedom. Freedom that you're chasing, that you're pursuing, that almost for certain you will never find. Perhaps you'll find some sort of sense of freedom, but not really. Life is a prison, we're imprisoned. Life is a set of many different prisons, and you're trapped in many, many different ways and many different situations. So, running away, or it's like you're always planning an escape, a very, very difficult escape from a prison that only leads to another prison. And you're constantly escaping from prison to prison, digging through the underground corridors that you
Mm-hmm.
very hard work on, very hard for many years, just digging with your hands, losing your knees, your nails. Sorry.
And you talked about trying to find music that you need to make. Have you found that with SNS Sensation? Is that what you're doing now?
I am finding it more and more. I mean, yeah, more and more, and it's a constant process of finding new things. And I don't really know what's gonna happen with all this, but for example, something that it's happening more and more is that I'm thinking that the traditional way of thinking about song structure is kind of obsolete now, and everything has changed so much because of the internet, streaming, and the new structure of the industry. And I think this song it has a certain repetition within it. The repetition is becoming less and less necessary, because if you want to hear that part, you play the song again. I mean, I really genuinely think surely we have to see some change, because music is so fucking boring. It's the universe, technology, the world is asking us to go towards a new music, and it doesn't involve contrived sort of manipulation. It involves truthful search for freedom, for the next escape route. And I think everyone is trapped, and everyone is too comfortable in the prison cell. Everyone is too comfortable in jail. I think there's a very, very few people that you see really trying to pull out from the heart. I think in many ways music was looking for an escape a lot more before in the past, and perhaps that's partly why we're kind of harking back to those styles and bringing them to here. But we're doing something different, because we don't want to be thinking of the same structures and the same ways. We're just using those vital elements, that desire for escape, and then we try to escape that mechanism itself.
Mm-hmm. Is this a metaphor that you've always been thinking about, or do you think that lockdown has influenced your thinking on that more so? Because I know you've been reflecting on the lockdown in your music.
Yeah, it was very, very strange how that whole thing happened. It happened very naturally. I suppose partly the reason why it happened is because I was scared out of my mind, and I didn't really enjoy living in the UK in January and February of 2020. It was a very, very, very scary, terrifying thing, because I could see how slow the response was going to be. I could see beforehand how poor the response was going to be, and it was. But I didn't know how it could affect me, and I think it did. I think the results in the UK have been really, really bad. But because I was talking to people in other parts of the world, particularly the producer that remixed this last song, Mirror Radio. He lives in China. He's lived in China for 10 years, and in China they are more experienced with these kinds of viruses, and they responded a lot more effectively to begin with. They do have a different political system and so on, but they did respond, in terms of the virus specifically, a lot better than we did. And I was taking the cues from him and hearing what he had to say in order to try to protect myself and try to protect who I knew, on Facebook, and try and spread the word. Anyway, I was really scared. It's a point, but I wasn't really although a lot of the stuff I was writing is in the darker sort of area of things, I still considered Essence Sensation a disco pop project. And I was writing a lot of disco kind of based pop stuff that I wanted to release. And the pandemic started, and I just had to. Those songs are waiting now. You know, I don't know when they will fit the current kind of situation. But I had to write that trilogy of songs on lockdown because it was so. But it was also a discovery, you know. It wasn't just fear. The fear itself somehow enabled me to look at fear in the eye, which is not something that I'm used to doing. I'll be honest. I'm not a brave person, although some people would disagree. But it's not like I'm seeking the face of death and trying to look at it in the face. But that's kind of what I ended up doing as a reaction to this extreme fear. To the panic. It was a very counter kind of intuitive mechanism that you when you're scared, you meant to kind of pull away from wherever the scary situation is. Instead, because of the nature of lockdown and because there wasn't really any alternative, I actually went further in as an artist, and I was really looking at the core of the fear, which is. So I was writing songs about what was going on right there and then. This trilogy is a little bit like that. There's very little hindsight. And generally songs, you know, the way you understand songs is there's a hindsight. Any storytelling, you need a bit of hindsight to be able to analyze what was going on. You don't really write about what's happening right there and then, what's close to the bone on the moment that you're writing, because you haven't got that perspective and so on. But it worked really well in this case. And the way that it worked is that it was a point where you were having to really look at death in the face and wonder, okay, so what does this mean in the larger scheme of things? It means that if you look at death, you can actually look at life in a different way, and that really facing death enables you to understand more of life. So I realized that within this lockdown thing, there wasn't just the fear of getting the virus or being locked down or whatever. There was a resonance with the larger kind of existential condition of all of us, where we all kind of are always locked down. You know, there's many prisons that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So this particular prison of lockdown, this prison of fear, uncertainty, and just the panic of lack of in the face of the kind of lack of action from leadership, from the government, resonated with all these other prisons, with all this other. I mean, you realize life is locked down. You know? We're locked down
in a flesh prison.
Well, I thought that was interesting. I mean, I think that's the first time that I do something like that I actually decide to write about the moment, and I decide to actually look at death in the face, because my music is generally more with heartbreak. You know, it's a lot more nostalgic and melancholic. It isn't really about. And when any kind of horror references is for the fun of it. And in the end, heartbreak is a melancholic sort of power pop thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas Essence Sensation is looking into the dark a bit more, I think.
I think with Heartbreak, there was more of like a tongue-in-cheek feel to it as well. Maybe with the music and also your performance as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Essence Sensation is a bit less like that. It's there, but it's a lot subtler. It's a lot more subtle and more less in your face, I think. The humor is there if you look for it, but it's a hell of a lot less immediate, I think. And I really have no clue how I'm going to perform with Essence Sensation. I mean, I had a few gigs in the past, Essence Sensation kind of started and then it never kind of carried on. And now I kind of started it again just because I wanted to. So I wanted to. And those gigs worked as they were, but it was a few gigs, and you need a few gigs until kind of maybe you need a few gigs until you realize what it is that you're doing. With Heartbreak, it's a very unique. What happened with Heartbreak is I can't actually explain. There's no logical way of explaining what happened with Heartbreak. It is a magical thing. This thing, we met with Ali, and we didn't do anything for years, and then we started making these songs, and then we performed. And from the first gig that we performed like we performed last time we performed. I mean, it was always like that, and there was no rehearsal, there was no discussion on what it is that we're doing. We just went and started playing. I started singing, and the performance was what it was. We had never, and we never actually talked about it with Ali. We don't really talk about performance. We talk about music. We don't talk about Heartbreak a lot, basically.
Yeah. And then there was like a hiatus, and you came back, but you're moving on.
No. That's it's happening. We're writing new songs with Ali, and we still have the band. We played a couple of gigs, and there's the plan to make an album and go for it. It's just taking an extraordinary amount of time. But we have written songs that are just not finished, but they're there and they're brilliant. So I'm really excited and looking forward to them. They're very different, I think, from that first album, and a lot of time has gone by. Mm-hmm. But I love the songs, so, and again, it's such a different workflow with Ali than it is with SMS Sensation by myself. Completely different. The hit rate is so ridiculous with Ali. We almost every song that we write ends up, we end up using. Not every single one of them. There's but then there must be 10%, 15% perhaps tops that we don't use. Whereas generally you are using 10 or 20% of the work that you produce. Mm-hmm. It's the other way around. It's the kind of thing that I can't really explain. We were friends, and then we studied together, and then we have a band, and then we didn't, and now we do again. And
cool, got
it. Such a mess. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. Basically, what I can explain to you. Yeah. It's a complete mess.
Got it. I understand mess.
It might be why the stuff is so good, because it's just a mess and it's out of everyone's control. It's not because of Ali that the Heartbreak is so good, and it's definitely not because of me.
Yeah.
Everything that happened and the music that came out of that, I don't know what it is or where it came from. I know where SNS Sensation comes from, and Ali knows where Ali's stuff comes from, and his session stuff is all brilliant. But he understands that process, but I don't think we understand Heartbreak.
It's interesting. Now that I'm filmmaking, it's the first time that I've made art with other people, because I was writing for a very long time first. And
you're an artist?
I was writing. Before, writing before I started filmmaking.
Fiction?
Yep.
Yeah. Still
going. But now I'm also making films, and yeah, I think that now that I'm working with other people, it's great and it's scary as well, right? Because now the stuff that you're making, if you're really enjoying it, it's also kind of dependent on you communicating with another person effectively, and maintaining a relationship with them, which is such an uncertain thing.
Yes. And
it's kind of scary, especially if you like it a lot, what you're making. So it's totally new to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the skill, a screenwriter skill is completely different from a filmmaker skill. I mean, not in the same universe. The filmmaker, the director, the producer, they are masters of dealing with people and compromising, negotiating, and getting as close to what they want as possible, and improvising. They're improvisers. A screenwriter doesn't improvise.
Yeah, I think that I want to know what your opinion on it is, because now that I've started filmmaking and then going back to writing, I can write a lot faster now, because I'm I know that if I have to come up with an answer that day because it needs to get done that day, then I will. With writing, there's less of a pressure on a deadline, especially if you're just writing something for your own satisfaction and so on. What have you noticed in when you work with Ali and you're doing Heartbreak compared to when you're doing SNS Sensation? What's the work rate, and how does it feel when you're making the work?
That's such a good question, man. I'm going to try not to talk too much about it, because I could talk forever about that. But I just said to you how different. I told you how different the workflow is between Heartbreak and SNS Sensation. But the effect that working in Heartbreak has had on my SNS Sensation writing can't be overstated. It's changed. It's changed everything about the way I work, the way I write, the way I write with machines, and as you said, the ability to solve problems. Because also, apart from the songs that we wrote with Ali, we did loads of remix work at the time. Lots of some of it fairly high profile stuff, but. So there was a lot of work done, and I learned so much from just getting all that work done and work collaborating and particularly, from Scorsese, I think, said once that the job of a director is to solve problems. People come to you with problems, and you have to find a solution. That's the job. It's not this glamorous world of creation and inspiration. It's literally solving shitloads of issues.
It's really annoying, yeah. And the thing is, I think that when I'm basically in the club, I try and get people to do different roles. And when you're when I'm not directing, if I have a problem, there's not enough light on his face, I'll say, there's not enough light on his face, so let's take this light and put it over there and turn up the volume. I'll come up with the problem and a solution. But when you're just directing, people are like, what if my hat's on wrong? What if my hair was different a long time? Where was my hair last time? Is that? And it's can you, they just say the problem at you with no options of how to solve it. So yes. I don't know. It's
direct. It sounds to me.
Yeah.
No, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone.
Go for it.
I think Hitchcock used to say that the good part of making films stopped when you started making the film. So the pre-production was a joy for him. And the great joy of filmmaking was pre-production. The rest of the filmmaking process was a very painful process of solving problems.
How is it comparable to making music? What are the joyous and the...
I think the point that I was making was that it's that ability to just solve the problem on the spot,
Yeah.
And not to get too hung up on issues. Just get it done, get it flowing. There's a lot of this has turned. I've turned a lot of important corners quite recently on this, but it's about it affects the mentality, right? So. Getting it done sounds like a too pragmatic, but actually getting it done, there's a lot of value to getting it done on the creative side of things. Just get it done. Just do it. Oh, that bothers you a bit, but just let it go. Go on. It's flow. That's what it is. Flow. You need to flow, and anything that tampers with flow, that's no good. Whether it's perfectionism or any sort of idea of the way things should be. And I have really arrived at a position a while ago where I have realized that the most important aspect of creative work is to experience joy as you're doing it. It's a very counterintuitive mentality, because we're in a society where you're paid to do hard work, and that hard work is the thing that will create quality in the eyes of a capitalist sort of production sort of ideology. But that doesn't work like that with art. I think I personally think that you produce your best work when you're constantly enjoying what you're doing, or as much as possible at least, and constantly flowing with it. And the best work that you can produce is the easiest work you produce.
I'm wondering what you like. I've been thinking of what else you could call perfectionism, because it sounds like a good thing, and I've never seen it produce anything good. Really, it stops people from doing anything. Like they can't get a sentence out. It's surreal. What else might you call it? Like self-sabotage or something? People should not be allowed to use the word perfect in association with that, I think.
Yeah, it's just that it resonates. I mean, it's such a long line that it really, when you learn not to be a perfectionist and to be able to produce creative work and be relatively prolific and so on, I think it's when you learn to live. It's a big part of learning how to live, because the reason why you are a perfectionist is because you haven't accepted life. You haven't accepted your imperfections and so on, your weaknesses, and you haven't accepted that this is the way life is. You're looking for a different thing that isn't life. You're not really looking at the way it is. I think that's what the root of perfectionism is you not ready yet to live your life.
So what comes next for SNS Sensation? You're releasing new music every few weeks, it seems like.
Yes, I want to try and do this now. I mean, I that was the goal initially, but I've run into some issues with. I'm working things out in my head in terms of how it works. But now I have come to the conclusion that the most important thing for me is to be releasing more often, every 6 to 8 weeks or so, and to keep a constant sort of flow. Flow is, you're going to hear me talk about flow a lot if you talk to me. And that means that the priority is in keeping the music out there, coming out. And that if that involves not having a music video for it, a particular single, then so be it. I'd rather have the song out than spend 9 months in finishing video and other sort of campaign assets and so on. Not because there's anything wrong with that side of work. I really love making music videos, and as you can probably tell, is very much a part of my artistic statement. It's not a promotional tool. It's part of the art. But I think it is quite possible that I'll be able to produce some sort of video work for it in 6 to 8 weeks. But again, if it isn't, then I'm happy with the music coming out. I had to make some difficult choices because of all this joy that we're talking about, the flow and so on. The songs come out quite different to each other, and they reveal many different aspects of a person. So instead of being genre music, I think it's human music. It's music about being a human being, and I don't think that's so convenient, but that's the way I'm doing things at the moment. I don't really know how people stick to a genre so tightly, I think it's great if you can do that, but we are complex. People are complex. We have different moments where we feel different things, and the persona, sometimes can be a bit reductive, and I don't know if I can do that, to be honest. I don't even know if I can be bothered to do it, even if I decided to, that's the right thing to do. So if you keep the songs coming out as a constant sort of flow, then people can both, they have enough time to value the song, to listen to it several times, and to value the song for what it is, because each song to me is precious. But also they get a sense of the different energies and ideas that you bring to each song. And eventually the picture, I'm hoping, the picture will become whole somehow. But another great thing about releasing every 6 to 8 weeks is that you really are releasing music about the moment. This is another thing I learned from the lockdown trilogy. You have the opportunity now with digital releases, and you can do very small runs. I've got a run of cassettes for Mirror Radio, which I haven't actually posted about because I haven't had the time, but you can do small cassette. I love cassette. I absolutely adore cassettes. I think probably my favorite format. I love vinyl very much, but there's something about the cassette, the dreamy quality of the way it sounds that really takes you to another space, in music. Lo-fi, I suppose, element. But I'm saying, it's so accessible for us to just release every few weeks and to really document the now a bit more. If you have an album, you work on the album all year, and that's the picture of what life was a year ago. And I don't think that fits anymore with the way history is moving anyway, because things are happening so fast. Everything's changed, and people, it's not just that people haven't got the time, because, I think bands are communities. If you have a project, you do it right, then you're giving people the chance to be in a community, to feel part of something that means something to them. So when people are engaged with your project in a way that means something to them, into their lives, you're giving them the ability to be part of a group of people that are like-minded, and they feel that they're not completely alone, at least in the world, then they will have a lot of time to listen to 3 albums, or listen to an album repeatedly. But that's not, that's the good thing about being able to release so every few weeks, is that you get that different perspective on your own sort of flow. You also make a statement, in an album. I don't know. I have a problem at the minute, which is that I'm completely against albums. I've gone the whole other way. I don't see the point of an album, and sometimes I get a little bit angry about the album, even because I think it's entitlement. It's this inability from the artist to connect with reality and with the audience as well. I might be completely wrong, but it's just what I feel at the moment. I feel, obviously, eventually I would like to release an album, I suppose, but at the moment I don't feel like it at all. I feel like this precious 3 minutes that I'm giving you, and I put my heart and soul on them, I want you to give it that time. I want to connect. I want you to connect with it.
Mm-hmm.
I told you this idea of losing the plot was very, very befitting, and I think I'm.
I think you're a valued guest for sure. It's all good. No, it's awesome. No, I'm glad. It's a lot to think about, and I appreciate it, because I don't know much about making music. I've been doing this podcast a while, and I haven't actually booked any new guests in a while. I just kind of, if I'm interested to talk to somebody, then I talk to them. So I hadn't had anyone planned, and then I saw that you had added me on Facebook, and I was like, I know exactly who that is. Like, they were my favorite band. Like, I went to go see them on my 20th birthday. I know what I'll do. I'll send them the picture, And then you responded, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, so he's actually responding to stuff. Do you know what? I wonder what he's up to now. Hey, I can find that out. I have a podcast. If I call him up, he'll tell me.
One of our super fans of Heartbreak once wrote a big review of a gig we did recently, and he was just like having a massive go at us. How could we be so selfish to have broken the band up at the time? What about the fans? And I think he has a point. What I'm trying to say is that okay, it happened, but I value fans a lot more, I think, than it's usually thought of. Fans are I respect fans. I think it's cool that they can become involved with music that isn't theirs. You as an artist, you tend to be a little bit self-centered. I think it's fans are real. Fans, the most real thing about the music industry by a mile is the fans. The only people that are there for no interest other than the love of the experience.
Well,
they're the most noble people on the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about that connection.
I try to always respond to any fan. I try to respond because I think they're the most important people.
I mean, you can see I've got my questions here, and I started with the SNS sensation questions and everything because I know that, like, I know as somebody who writes stuff that the most important thing that you're writing is the thing that you're writing in the moment. It's not what you wrote last year or anything. I respect that. I don't expect you to. I don't know. I mean, it's your band. You can do what you want with it. I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
I was just curious. I'm just curious about how things progress, what people are doing in life, and what they're interested in. Just people, I think that's always what my podcast is interested in. It's just like, what's it like to be them, I guess. What are they thinking about?
What I can tell you, what I can guarantee is that we were intense back then when we were Heartbreak, but in perhaps a different way, my process is twice as intense as it was back then. And that the search for freedom continues perhaps more intensely than it ever has done before, because the prisons have become more evident with time.
There's like an urgency to it.
Yes, there was an urgency at the time, but a lot of that energy was coming from our own the neurosis within the band. We were a very neurotic band. We realized the level of the music that we were making. We realized that this was something else, that this was something that we couldn't do on our own, that this was stemming from a weird chemical reaction between the two of us. And it was a very difficult thing to manage from an ego perspective. We're a lot better at it nowadays. But when you realize that the best music that you can only make with someone else, it's it's music giving you a very brilliant lesson on the best music comes out of no ego. I think it was Mad Mike from the Underground Resistance that used to say that you gotta forget the ego and focus on the music, and you manage to do that. That's the best music you can ever produce, but it's a difficult lesson to learn, and sometimes it involves a great degree of pain.
Yeah,
it's
I mean, there's death,
but it's transcending the ego,
No, I mean, I know exactly the type of stuff you're talking to. I mean, I've talked to so many writers and so many some people have been in films and stuff. But I mean, everyone experiences the same thing, like, especially when it comes to whatever you're making. I always find that whatever I'm making can only be made at the time. Sometimes I read something I wrote 5 years ago and I'm like, I forgot I felt that way, and I could not articulate that now. I'm glad I wrote that at the time. Couldn't do it now, There's whatever you make gets locked in a time and place as well. And when that comes with great success, which it never has for me, it's like, I can imagine that it's really scary, because it's like, you want to take off and you want the world to look at you, but when they do, you're like, oh my god, how long are they going to do it for? You know, that's what you're talking about. Maybe the series of prisons. It's like you just reframe it as something new to worry about, perhaps, or I would, you know.
I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy being Heartbreak in the industry at the time, you know. It really was, you know, when you have an idea, you say, okay, I can identify these constraints, these prisons, I'm going to break out, right? I'm going to go ahead and break out. It's just an idea. You don't really think that it's serious, you know, you're just trying it out. And then the whole thing happens and there's some success and a lot of touring and you're supporting big bands with, and that's you see the system, and the system doesn't love people that are trying to break out or undermine it, you know. It's not easy to do that kind of thing, and it shouldn't be easy, and you should never think that it's easy, but perhaps, you know, something I realized is that it is a lot harder than I realized. You think that is because it's music, it's a much freer environment, but the market, you know, it's a force of a regulating force, a force that constrains rather than liberates. Innovation is always outside.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like you if you did look at like other people, I mean, like for example, there was a story I had in an anthology, and I gave it to my sister, and she read the first story in it that was by another writer, and she was like, "This is brilliant. I had nightmares about it. Like I couldn't stop thinking about it." I said, "Yeah, he delivers Amazon packages." She was like, "What? How is that possible? Like, how is it possible that somebody with disability?" And it's like, maybe it's what you're saying. Maybe it's the fact that that's what he does is why he's so good at writing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kafka. I mean, so many Kafka. Proust was, I think, bedridden for most of his writing life, wasn't he?
Didn't do anything until he was like 40. Like,
yeah.
Hadn't made anything.
I tell you, I think Bukowski, I mean, I'm not saying that Bukowski is at that level, but he was very successful at what he did, and he was a postman for like 15 years or something. All I'm saying is that, you know, yeah, absolutely, man. You know, look, the most talented musicians that I know in the world, I know some of them I know personally, or some of them I know of them. None of them are making a very handsome living of music, or even living at all. They all have a job.
I don't know also if you saw this. This is such a tangent now. I've asked all my questions, so I'm just having a chat now. I don't know if you saw or heard about this Britney Spears documentary.
I really want to watch it, yes.
Yeah. I can't remember where I found it online, but that, like, they talked about how she became an overnight success at how young she was, and then she started being interviewed, and I just got this like panicky feeling of like imagining myself there, sudden overnight success at that age. Like that's terrifying. I wouldn't want that at all. And you look at what it's done to like her life, or what it does to people. I mean, like other documentaries I've seen, like the Amy Winehouse one or Whitney Houston or so on, like enormous success is not like enviable anyway, you know?
Oh God, no. I mean, the most enviable thing, I think it's it's which might not even exist, is the ability to look at the moment, to really be able to live in the moment, you know, to be in the moment. The whole thing with, I mean, I'm not very good at meditation. I do it when I can, and I love it whenever I can manage it. But I've not been able to go. I haven't got a mantra or anything like that, you know. But I don't know if people can really live in the moment. I know it helps to try. But I think the ability to, or at least the predisposition to embrace the wonder of the everyday, of the every moment, or some moments at least, that's the greatest skill. And that's going to produce, and that involves also, you know, enjoying the process of generating this creative work and seeing it finished when you finish it, or abandon it, whatever you call it. And that's the greatest skill. The greatest wisdom has nothing to do with money or success or power. It's not a power thing, really. All that stuff is really it's never satisfactory. That's what people want, more and more of that. I don't know, maybe when you get to live in the moment, then you want more. I have no idea, because I don't think you can, to be honest. But that it's the same thing as fighting for freedom, running away from things and looking for freedom and striving for freedom. That living in the moment is also another impossible task. I have become quite obsessed with the impossible. I think the impossible is one of the greatest philosophical concepts that I could think of, or even though I haven't read about it anywhere. I'm thinking that the impossible is my own sort of concept, but obviously I haven't got enough academic background to say whether this is the case or not. But at any rate, I don't care. I think that, to me, I'm fascinated by the impossible. The impossible is the most wonderful thing in life, and one of the great lessons in life is to be able to embrace the impossible and make the impossible part of your everyday life, and be able to love the impossible. Can you love the impossible? Can you love the impossible? That should be the question, not how do I make it in this business?
Yeah.
How do I love the impossible? Can I love the impossible? It's not easy to love the impossible.
When you say that, do you mean? Sounds like you mean just like the constraints of being alive.
The impossible. I suppose it is related to desire. I guess I haven't fully worked it out how to articulate it, but I guess desire is part of it. Can you desire the impossible with full knowledge that it is impossible, and love that thing that normally would frustrate you?
Do you know the Myth of Sisyphus?
Yes.
The Camus book.
Obsessed. There's a song that's coming out at some point. It's called In the End, but I have it written, but I haven't decided when to release it. And it's about, in the end, the rock rolls down the slope. No God can make it stop. I can't remember the rest of it, but it's I talk about Sisyphus, yeah. Sisyphus is everything, man. Sisyphus. Can you love the rock? Can you love the,
But you know the book by Albert Camus?
Yeah, it's which one is one?
It's called The Myth of Sisyphus.
The Myth of Sisyphus.
Yeah. See, I know.
I haven't read it, but I know about the myth. Yeah.
Okay.
I need to read the book. Yeah.
So, it might be a good starting point for what you're talking about. I don't know, but no, it's a good one. He's a big one for me. Like him a lot. Like Beckett. Do you know Sarah Kane, the playwright?
No.
Okay, I'm not going to recommend her because her stuff is incredibly violent and horrible. But
check it out. Yeah.
I think she's really like influenced by Beckett, or she really was.
And I would definitely read her. Yes. Big
British playwright in the early 90s. It's just incredible. Just one of my favorites. And I think if you like Beckett, you would like her stuff. But it like I say, it's incredibly violent. So I started asking. I even asked her agency if I could produce one of her plays as a film, but they'd already sold the rights to somebody else. But I was already telling people in my club, like, can you read this? Because I would like you to be part of it. And they were like, no, I can't read this. It's too horrible. I can't be in it.
I'll definitely give it a go. It's not really my subject. Extreme violence. I do love, for example, Wild at Heart, the Lynch film.
Oh, that's one I haven't seen. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is brilliant, but it hasn't become my central concern, because extreme violence. I mean, I love, Italian horror films from the 70s and the 80s, and that was pretty extreme. But my concern wasn't. the extreme violence aspect of it was interesting in terms of, I suppose, that escape, that search for freedom. It was a way of looking, of pushing beyond. But the most interesting thing for me, in people like Lucio Fulci and artists like that, it was the eye. To me, it really was the whole thing about the eye. And in my work, you will find soon, as I keep releasing more stuff and it becomes more evident, that screens, eyes, mirrors, windows, this is my central concern. It all comes back from that kind of post-structuralist, postmodern kind of side of things. Reflection, spontaneity, and life and representation. But as I said before, the thing that really pushed me and pushes me these days and really inspires me these days is within all that, which it can become quite stale, that whole kind of business of screens and mirrors and windows, it can become a little bit, it's happened already. So, but it's the impossible. The impossible is this thing. What I love about the concept of the impossible is that I don't see how the impossible could ever run out of steam. It's just such a complex question, and also because it's impossible. How does it end? It's a bit like the infinite. Sometimes when I talk about disco music, I talk about the infinite, right? And again, it has to do with dancing. Dancing is huge for me. It's a huge thing, dancing. I mean, because meditation and dancing, you can see there, but you can understand why machines were so important in disco music, why the automated sequence, the machine, because dancing is a machine thing. It's one of the most misguided ways of thinking about dancing for the dancer is to think that the dancer needs to be creative and needs to find constant variations, new ways of moving. The greatest dancing of all dancing is the dancing that is mechanic, automatic, and repetitive, like a machine, like a sequencer. You will find the greatest transcendence in the practice of dance when you repeat a movement, and the longer you can keep it repeating, you find difference, the most powerful, most profound difference in repetition. Repetition is key to everything. Repetition is a great helper in solving the mysteries of time. Repetition is a key to fall back in love with time.
Well, it's been so interesting talking to you. What should listeners do? We should follow you on social media and so on to get your next songs.
Yeah, not because I know what I'm doing next, but I know that I'm releasing a song in a few weeks, 8 weeks or something like that, 6 8 weeks. But yes, follow me. I'm finding my feet all the time, constantly finding out what I'm about. And at the moment, because this is a new project, it's a very intense process of discovery, and you can follow that. And I think it's going to be interesting, because I am becoming more and more honest and spontaneous in the way that I'm using social media. I didn't really get it, I didn't get it. What is this social media? I mean, it's a ridiculous thing if you think about it. Can I ask you a question? Oh wait, let me promote the band. I should be professional for a second. And I'll ask you a question in a second. I'm really interested before you go. So Instagram, you're gonna.
I'll give all the links. I'll give all the links. Yeah.
I'll give you all the links. Instagram is where I'm doing the most stuff. But in Twitter, I just started recently, and I find that Twitter can be really cool as well, because you can write very short lines, and they can really kind of, because it's so short, it's much wider as a door. You know, it can open a lot more lines of flight. But Instagram is cool because it's with images, and I don't know, and stories. You can write longer stories, so Instagram is cool. Facebook, I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure out what to do with Facebook. It has no reach, so you're talking into the. You're not really reaching anyone. I don't know what Facebook band pages are for, but I'm posting links to the music I'm listening to. So trying to do different things on different media. But the thing, Instagram is important. Twitter is nice to have if you have it. And YouTube, I want to push the YouTube thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a great dream about doing great things on YouTube, but I haven't done them yet. So, but anyway, if you want to subscribe to that and wait for that to happen. And the other thing I was asking people is what really helps actually is if you do use Spotify, which a lot of fans don't. But if you do try to follow me, because that means that when I release a song, it goes to your playlist or something, and that is good for the song. Anyway, I'm figuring that out at the moment, but that's an important one. Anyway, why would you follow me if you hear the music? I don't know, man. What I'm doing, man, and that's going to lead nicely to the question I wanted to ask you. But what I'm doing it's always been from the heart, it's like a real search for something beyond a band, I tried to be a band and I toured the world, and it was really fun, but it was also a system that said no a lot, and I should have said I don't care, and I did for a while, but you get tired anyway. I think it's still the same thing, man. It's still from the heart, and talk to Ali and you'll get the same answer, man. This is a community of musicians. We do very different things from each other. We do very different things. We don't always like what each other is doing, or we don't think the world of what each other is doing, but we always respect it. And not a lot of people are into pop music, but we respect the sound and we love what we're doing, and we're all doing it from the heart. So it's worth pursuing because there's a real search there. We don't know where it's leading, and we don't know what we're going to find, but it's going to be interesting. That I can guarantee that. Okay. Anyway, that's my pitch for the fans there, or the new fans, or whatever.
Good one.
But the question is, when you said the first time you saw us supporting the president, what were your thoughts the first time you saw? Do you remember what was the impression you got? What the first time you saw Heartbreak?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I already knew you were going to be there. I'd been listening to your music before I saw you the first time because.
Why?
I always loved support bands. I don't know why. I just like who have I paid to see? I want to know everything about them. Yeah.
You're alone in that club, I tell you.
Pretty much. So
I think that's the first time in my life I heard anyone say that.
Yeah, I think that's true. So I listened to your music, and I came in and you were playing "Living Just for Fun." That was the first one, which I liked it. And people were there to see the presets, so some people were just showed up early and they got drinks, which is what they do. But I think my impression of you was, first of all, you're a very charismatic performer, which I always found very impressive. And it was great when I saw you later in front of a big audience, because a big audience of people who had come just to see you, and you were a big thing, and it was awesome. But you were just determined to it seemed to me that you were just determined to have a great time, no matter what was happening in front of you. That's the impression I got. I thought that's cool.
Yeah.
I admired that.
Spot on. Yeah. Great.
I think it worked. You seem to be having a great time. Because by the time you played "We're Back," which I think was your last song, you were doing like the bullhorns to the audience and stuff. You were like this and dancing about crazy. It was fun because like you say, I think I don't think you weren't well known at the time, I think. You're like, whatever, I'm gonna have a great time playing music. So I really admired that. I thought that was cool.
Yes. You only live once. Okay, well, I hope I haven't fully disappointed you in person. It's been a pleasure for me.
I'm glad. I'm very glad. I might be more glad that you had a good time than that I had a good time. Because we were talking about, like, trying to live in the moment and have a good time and everything. I feel like I'm the kind of person who's so nervous that everyone else is having a nice time that I forget whether or not I'm enjoying myself. So I'm glad to hear that you had a good time.
Well, that's the good news about that is that perhaps you can now really look at that and work that into your horror and look for freedom, you know? We all have to, we're all, not that you're going to find it, of course, but when you identify that fear, you can, that's an opportunity to look for freedom, to strive for freedom.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not the only freedom that you're going to strive for, but it's one of them. Every time you identify that, and you can say that. I love that.
Yeah, well, the artistic one is the most important one, right? And that's why I think what you're talking about, like, I mean, I get a ton of writing rejections all the time and everything, but now I'm just like, well, at least every time I send something out, I know that I said exactly what I wanted to say. And that's more value than anyone's approval. The only approval that I would value is if I said exactly what I wanted to say and somebody said I like that. Not if I managed to work out what they wanted to say and said that and got that approved. Who cares? Somebody else can do that, you know?
Think about one of the things that I want to do with Sensation, that I would like to do, and I really wanted to do that with Heartbreak too, and I think to some degree we did it. I want bands. I think bands have a very weird effect on fans. Sometimes fans will feel part of that community, but they do pay a price, which is to feel less somehow, you know? And there is a reality that where the fan feels less than the artist. My goal is to be able to build a community with bands where fans can find the value, you know? Where they can find that that's also an opportunity to value themselves. I don't want a situation, you know, I think at the moment, I'm just starting with this, but the feeling is like, I don't want it to be a question of power. Of course, you gotta get paid because you travel, you rehearse, you put on the show. The fan is turning up and, you know, enjoying themselves in whichever way they want. So it is a service, if you want. So the musician spends all day in the venue, sound checking and so on. There's a lot of reasons why the band gets paid. That's okay. I think that's fine. But in terms of the value, you know, I think we have a problem in this society with value, and it comes down to this capitalist bullshit, man. You know, we need to be able to find ways of providing people with a sense of value. Fans need to realize how important they are. They are essential. There's no show without fans. You know, I don't know. I haven't tried the streaming show live gig thing. Must be the weirdest thing on earth. I can't even imagine how that would ever work. But maybe that's the fun part of it. But realistically, now once we go back to gigging, you know, yeah, man, fans are the show. Fans maybe don't realize how important what they do is to the show.
So there you go. There are links in the description so you can find out more about SNS Sensation and all the music that Sebastian is currently creating. I do hope you'll check it out. I think it's great. I'm so glad I got to talk to him. If you would like to be on the show, or if you want to tell me something about it, you can always do so using losingtheplotpodcast@gmail.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. That's all my chat for this episode, so until next time, bye bye.